Dr. Kithara pressed her long fingers against the cold metal console. The numbers on her screen made no sense. For 3 days, the same signal had been coming from the edge of space. It was weak, broken, but it was there. The research station Cosmic Dawn floated quietly in the darkness. Around her, other Zephyrians worked at their stations. Their blue skin glowed softly under the lights. Kithara was the best language expert on the station. If anyone could understand the signal, it was her. "Computer, play the signal again," she said. The speakers crackled to life. Strange sounds filled the room. Some parts sounded like words, but in no language she knew. Other parts were just numbers, mathematical patterns that any thinking species would recognize. Kithara had spent years studying alien languages. The Zephyrians had contact with 4 other major species in the galaxy. The crystal beings called Vorthak, who thought as one mind. The Nexari, who lived in giant hives. The Luminals, who were made of pure energy. And the Deep Callers, who lived underwater on their homeworld. But this signal was different. It came from the Dead Zone. Everyone knew about the Dead Zone. It was a huge area of space where ships disappeared. The Galactic Council had sent expeditions there over the years. None had ever returned. Most species now avoided it completely. Kithara, the voice belonged to Captain Velthar. He was tall, even for a Zephyrian. His skin was darker blue, marked with the scars of many battles. "Have you learned anything new?" She looked up from her work. "Captain, I think I'm starting to understand parts of it." "Look at this," she pointed to her screen. "These numbers here. They're mathematical constants. Pi, the golden ratio, prime numbers. Any species with technology would know these." "That proves intelligence," Velthar said. "But what are they saying?" Kithara played with the controls. The signal became clearer. She had been working on filtering out the static and interference. Listen to this part. The speakers played a short section of the signal. Even with the improvements, it was hard to understand. But some words were becoming clear. "Colony ships," Kithara said. "I'm sure that's what this word means. And this one, it might be lost or gone." She paused the recording. "Captain, I think this is a distress call." Velthar moved closer to look at her work. "From the Dead Zone? That's impossible. Nothing lives there." "Something does," Kithara said. She played another section. "Listen here. This part sounds like children and starving. And at the end, she played the final part of the signal. That sounds like please or help." The captain was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the other crew members had stopped their work to listen. The research station felt very quiet. "How old is this signal?" Velthar asked. Kithara checked her readings. "Based on the degradation and distance, it's been traveling for at least 50 years. Maybe more. Captain, whoever sent this has been calling for help for decades." Velthar stared at the screen showing the signal's origin point. It was deep in the Dead Zone, farther than any ship had ever traveled and returned. "I need to contact the Galactic Council," he said. 3 days later, the 5 species of the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The meeting took place on Nexus Station, a massive space station that served as the government center for the galaxy. The Zephyrians were represented by Admiral Yeldana, an old soldier with white markings on her blue skin. The Vorthak sent a single crystal being that spoke for their entire species. The Nexari Queen attended with her usual swarm of worker drones. The Luminals appeared as a bright ball of energy that shifted colors as it talked. The Deep Callers joined the meeting through a water-filled environment suit. Admiral Yeldana played the signal for the council. She explained what Dr. Kithara had discovered about its meaning and origin. "This is clearly a trap," the Vorthak representative said. Its crystal body rang like a bell when it spoke. "Nothing has ever returned from the Dead Zone. This signal is designed to lure ships to their destruction." The Nexari Queen's voice buzzed with the sound of 1,000 insects. "The Vorthak speak wisdom. Our species have lost too many ships to whatever lurks in that region. We will not sacrifice more." The luminal pulsed bright red. "The pattern of disappearances suggests an intelligent predator, one that has learned to mimic distress calls. This is exactly what such a creature would broadcast." The Deep Caller's voice came through a translator sounding like whale songs. "The depths of space hold many dangers. Some are best left undisturbed." Admiral Yeldana listened to each speaker. When they finished, she stood. "I understand your concerns. But what if you're wrong? What if there really are survivors out there, calling for help for 50 years? Then they are already dead," the Vorthak said. "Nothing could survive that long in the Dead Zone. You don't know that, Yeldana replied. The signal contains technology we don't recognize. Maybe they have better life support systems. Maybe they found a way to survive. The Nexari Queen's drones buzzed angrily. Zephyrians always want to play hero. How many of your ships will you sacrifice for this fantasy? If we're wrong, we lose a few ships, Yeldana said. If you're wrong, we abandon an entire civilization to die alone in the darkness. The council argued for hours. In the end, the vote was what everyone expected. 4 species voted against any rescue mission. Only the Zephyrians voted to investigate the signal. We will not stop you, the Vorthak said. But we will not help you either. When your ships disappear like all the others, do not expect us to send more. Admiral Yeldana nodded. We understand. We'll go alone. Back on the Cosmic Dawn, Captain Velthar prepared his ship for the journey. Admiral Yeldana had given him command of a small fleet. 3 ships total. His research vessel, a military escort called the Starblade, and a medical ship named Gentle Current. Dr. Kethara worked frantically to improve the signal. The closer they got to the dead zone, the stronger it became. She was finding new words, new patterns, but she was also finding something else. Captain, she called. You need to see this. Velthar joined her at the communication station. What is it? I've been analyzing the signal structure. It's not just a distress call. There are other things mixed in. Technical data, star charts, and something else. She looked worried. Captain, I think this signal contains military information. What kind of military information? Weapon designs, battle tactics, and something about an enemy. A species or force they call the Devourers. She pulled up her translation work. Captain, I don't think this is just a call for help. I think it's a warning. The 3 Zephyrian ships continued toward the dead zone. Behind them, the lights of civilized space grew dim. Ahead lay only darkness and the mystery of a signal that had traveled 50 years to reach them. Whatever had sent that signal was still out there, waiting. The dead zone looked exactly like its name suggested. Captain Velthar stood on the bridge of the Cosmic Dawn, staring out at empty space. No stars, no planets, nothing but darkness stretching in every direction. How much farther to the signal source? He asked. Dr. Kethara checked her instruments. 2 more days at current speed, but Captain, I'm picking up something else. What kind of something? Debris, lots of it, and it's getting thicker the closer we get to our destination. Velthar activated the main view screen. At first he saw nothing. Then the computer enhanced the image and his breath caught in his throat. Metal fragments drifted past their ship. Some pieces were small, no bigger than his hand. Others were huge chunks of twisted hull plating. The metal didn't look like anything the known species used. Commander Zethrin, Velthar called to the military escort. Are you seeing this? The voice of the Starblade's captain came through the speakers. Confirmed. Unknown debris field. Some of these pieces are massive. As they traveled deeper into the field, the debris grew thicker. Dr. Kethara worked at her station, scanning each piece they passed. Captain, these fragments are from dozens of different ship designs, maybe hundreds, and they're from different time periods. Some of this wreckage is ancient. Other pieces look relatively new. The medical ship Gentle Current reported similar findings. Captain Yathara, the chief medical officer, sounded troubled. I'm detecting traces of organic material in some debris. Multiple species. None that I recognize from our databases. For 2 days they traveled through the graveyard. The deeper they went, the more disturbing it became. Entire ship sections floated past them. Engine parts from unknown civilizations. Weapon systems that had been torn apart by incredible force. My God, Dr. Kethara whispered. How many ships died here? Velthar didn't answer. He was thinking about the Galactic Council's warnings. Maybe the other species had been right. Maybe they were flying into a trap. On the 2nd day, their sensors detected something new. Contact ahead, announced the navigation officer. It's big. Really big. The view screen showed a massive structure floating in the center of the debris field. It looked like it had been built from the wreckage of 1,000 different ships. Parts were welded together in strange patterns. Some sections looked like they had grown rather than been constructed. Is it a ship? Velthar asked. Unclear, Dr. Kethara replied. It's part space station, part fortress, maybe part tomb. The signal is definitely coming from there. As they got closer, the structure's true size became clear. It was enormous, bigger than any space station the Zephyrians had ever built, bigger than the Nexari hive ships, bigger than anything in known space. "I'm reading multiple life signs," Captain Yathara reported from the medical ship. "Thousands of them, maybe millions, but they're all very weak." "Define weak," Velthar said. "Barely alive. Like they're in some kind of suspended animation. Or dying very slowly." The three Zephyrian ships approached the structure carefully. Up close, they could see it was covered with docking ports from dozens of different civilizations. Some they recognized from ancient historical records. Others were completely unknown. "This is incredible," Dr. Kethara said. "Captain, this structure was built by survivors from multiple species. They somehow found each other here and combined their ships into this ark." Velthar made the decision to board the structure. He took a small team with him, including Dr. Kethara and 2 security officers. They docked at a port that looked like it might fit their ship. The moment they stepped inside, they knew they were in a tomb. The corridors were filled with bodies in various states of preservation. Some looked recently dead. Others had been there for years, maybe decades. They were from species the Zephyrians had never seen before. "The environmental systems are failing," Dr. Kethara reported. "Life support is running on emergency power, has been for a long time." They moved deeper into the structure. Every chamber told the same story. Refugees from unknown civilizations gathered together in this place, slowly dying as their life support systems failed. In one large chamber, they found thousands of stasis pods. Most were dark, their occupants long dead, but some still flickered with power. Weak life signs showed inside. "They're still alive," Dr. Kethara said. "Barely, but alive." The team continued exploring. They found workshops where different species had tried to repair their ships, libraries where they had stored their knowledge, nurseries where they had tried to keep their children safe. And everywhere they found the same message carved into walls in dozens of different languages. Dr. Kethara translated it. "We ran from the devourers. We hope someone will find us. We hope someone will remember us." In the deepest part of the structure, they found the command center. Ancient computers still functioned on minimal power. The walls were covered with star charts and what looked like battle plans. "This is where the signal came from," Dr. Kethara said. She accessed the computers using her universal translator. "Captain, you need to see this." The main screen activated, showing a holographic display. It was a map of the galaxy, but not as they knew it. Huge sections were marked in red. Other areas were marked as fallen or consumed. "This shows the advance of something called the Devourers," Dr. Kethara explained. "They've been moving across the galaxy for thousands of years. Every red area represents a civilization that was destroyed." Velthar studied the map. The red areas covered more than half the galaxy, and they were all moving in the same direction, toward the area where known civilizations lived. These people weren't just refugees, he realized. They were scouts. Advance warning of something terrible coming toward us. Dr. Kethara accessed more files. "Captain, the Devourers aren't just destroyers. They're collectors. They consume entire civilizations and use their knowledge to become stronger. Every species they defeat makes them more powerful." A new hologram appeared. It showed massive mechanical ships, sleek and deadly. They moved like predators, surrounding planets and stripping them bare. "How long ago was this?" Velthar asked. "The most recent entries are from 50 years ago, but the Devourers have been active for thousands of years, maybe longer." Velthar felt cold fear in his stomach. "Dr. Kethara, if these Devourers have been moving toward our part of the galaxy for 50 years, they could arrive at any time," she finished. The team explored more of the command center. They found personal logs from the refugees recorded in dozens of languages. All told the same story. The Devourers had come without warning. Entire civilizations had fallen in days or weeks. Those who escaped had fled here, hoping to find others who had survived. "Look at this," Dr. Kethara said. She had found a more recent log entry. This was recorded just 5 years ago. Someone was still alive then. The hologram showed a being in strange armor. It spoke in a language the translator couldn't identify at first. Then the computer began to work out the meaning. "We are the last," the being said. "Our ships are failing, our people are dying, but we have gathered the knowledge of 47 civilizations, battle plans, weapon designs, everything we learned fighting the Devourers. If anyone finds this place, use what we have learned. Don't let our deaths be meaningless." The hologram flickered and died. The command center fell silent, except for the hum of failing life support. "Captain," Dr. Cathura whispered, "this isn't just a refugee camp. It's a military archive. These people spent their last years preparing for war against something that destroyed their entire civilizations." Velthar looked around at the dying structure, filled with the last survivors of dozens of species. They had all faced the same enemy. They had all lost everything. And they had all ended up here in this graveyard at the edge of space, waiting for someone to find their warning. "We need to get this information back to the Galactic Council," he said. But even as he spoke, alarms began ringing throughout the structure. The ancient sensors had detected something approaching through the debris field. Something big. Something that moved like a predator. The Devourers had found them. The alarms echoed through the ancient structure like the cries of dying animals. Captain Velthar and his team ran through the corridors, following emergency lights that flickered with failing power. "How long do we have?" Velthar shouted over the noise. Dr. Cathara checked her portable scanner. "The sensors show incoming objects. Large ones. They'll be here in less than 3 days." They reached their docking port and quickly returned to the cosmic dawn. Once aboard, Velthar immediately contacted his other ships, Commander Zethrin, Captain Yathara. "Prepare for immediate departure." "Captain," came Zethrin's voice from the Starblade. "We're reading massive energy signatures approaching. Whatever's coming, it's big enough to destroy entire star systems." "I know," Velthar replied. "We need to get out of here now." But Dr. Cathara grabbed his arm. "Wait, Captain, we can't leave yet. There are still people alive in that structure. Thousands of them in failing stasis pods. We can't save them all," Velthar said. "We have 3 ships and maybe 72 hours before whatever destroyed their civilizations arrives here. But we might be able to save some. And Captain, there's something else. I detected another signal while we were in the command center. It's different from the others. Stronger. Coming from deeper in the structure." Velthar looked at the massive alien structure on his view screen. Every minute they stayed increased their danger. But if there were still survivors, "Show me," he said. Dr. Cathara brought up the new signal on her console. It was different from the refugee distress call they had followed. This one was more complex, more organized. "It's not just a distress call," she explained. "It's data. Lots of data. Technical specifications, star charts, and something else. Something that might be important. Can you trace the source?" "Yes, it's coming from a section we didn't explore. Deep in the core of the structure." Velthar made his decision. "We go back. One team fast in and out. We find the source of this signal and get whatever information we can." This time, Velthar took a larger team. Dr. Cathara, 4 security officers, and Captain Yathara with medical equipment. They moved quickly through the dying structure, following the signal to its source. The deeper sections were in worse condition. Bodies floated in corridors where gravity generators had failed. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on walls covered with desperate messages in alien languages. "This way," Dr. Cathara said, following her scanner. They found the signal's source in a heavily shielded chamber deep in the structure's core. The room was different from the others. The technology looked more advanced, more familiar somehow. In the center of the room sat a single stasis pod. Unlike the others they had seen, this one was still functioning at full power. The being inside was clearly alive, though unconscious. "The signal is coming from the pod's systems," Dr. Cathara said. "It's been broadcasting automatically, trying to attract attention." Captain Yathara approached the pod with her medical scanner. "The occupant is in stable condition. The stasis system is more advanced than anything we've seen. It could keep someone alive for centuries." Velthar studied the being in the pod. It was roughly humanoid, but different from any species he knew. The skin was pale, the features strange but somehow familiar. "The pod systems are integrated with data storage," Dr. Cathara reported. Massive amounts of information, technical data, historical records, and military intelligence. Can you access it? Working on it. Dr. Kethera connected her equipment to the pod systems. The encryption is complex, but I think I can... Got it. The room filled with holographic displays, star charts, ship designs, battle footage, and technical specifications. But something was wrong with the data. It didn't match anything in their databases. These ship designs, Velthar said, studying the holograms. I've never seen anything like them. Neither have I, Dr. Kethera agreed. But look at this. She highlighted part of the display. These are Devourer ships, the same ones we saw in the other records. But these images are much more detailed. The holograms showed massive mechanical vessels, sleek and deadly, but these images also showed their weak points, their attack patterns, their technology. Whoever this is, Captain Yathara said, they studied the Devourers extensively. This is intelligence gathered from actual combat. Dr. Kethara accessed more files. There are battle reports here, detailed analysis of Devourer tactics, and, oh my, her voice became very quiet. What is it? These reports describe the fall of a civilization. But not just any civilization. Look at this. She brought up a holographic image of a planet, blue and green with white clouds. This planet, it looks like a standard habitable world, Velthar said. Yes, but look at the name in their database. Dr. Kethara highlighted text that appeared near the image. They call it Earth, and the species that lived there. They call themselves humans. More files opened automatically. Images of the beings called humans appeared. They looked exactly like the person in the stasis pod. According to these records, Dr. Kethara continued, Earth was attacked by the Devourers 50 years ago. The entire planet fell in 6 months. The holographic records played like a nightmare. Massive Devourer ships appeared in Earth's solar system. Human ships, primitive compared to what the galaxy was used to, tried to fight back. The battle was hopeless from the start, but look at this, Captain Yathara said. She had found medical records in the database. These humans, they're warriors. Their entire history is filled with conflict. They've been fighting each other for thousands of years. The records showed human military history, wars between their own species, tactics and strategies developed through centuries of conflict, technology designed for one purpose, killing efficiently. They learned to fight by fighting themselves, Velthar realized. No other species has a military history like this. Dr. Kethora accessed more files. When the Devourers came, the humans didn't just try to escape. They studied them, learned their patterns, developed counter-strategies. The battle records were incredible. While Earth burned, human scientists and military leaders worked frantically to understand their enemy. They discovered things about the Devourers that other species had never learned. Look at this analysis, Dr. Kethera said. The Devourers adapt to their enemies by studying their tactics. They learn from each battle, becoming stronger. But the humans figured out their weakness, which is, the Devourers can only adapt to logical, predictable strategies. Every species they'd encountered before fought in organized, rational ways. The humans, she paused, studying the data. The humans fought chaotically, unpredictably. They used tactics that made no logical sense. The records showed human battle strategies that seemed insane. Deliberate sacrifices of entire fleets to create small advantages. Attacks that ignored military logic. Tactics that seemed designed to confuse rather than win. They call it asymmetric warfare, and Dr. Kethara read from the files. Fighting an enemy not to win directly, but to create conditions where winning becomes possible. Captain Yathara had been studying the medical data. Captain, these humans are different from any species we know. Their biology is designed for survival under extreme stress. They can function in conditions that would kill most other beings. But they still lost, Velthar pointed out. Earth fell. Their species was destroyed. Not all of them, Dr. Kethara said. She accessed new files. Before Earth fell, they launched colony ships. Hundreds of them sent in all directions. This woman, she indicated the being in the stasis pod. Her name is Sarah Chen. She was on one of the colony ships. More records appeared. Sarah Chen had been a military strategist, one of the humans' best tactical minds. Her ship carried not just refugees, but the complete database of human military knowledge. Her mission wasn't just to survive, Dr. Kethara explained. It was to find other species and teach them how to fight the Devourers. The final files were the most important. Sarah's ship had tracked the Devourer advance across the galaxy. They had found this refugee station and realized it was the perfect place to make their stand. "The signal we followed," Velthar said. "It wasn't just a distress call." "No," Dr. Cathara confirmed. "It was a recruitment message. The humans were calling for allies. They wanted to gather survivors and create an army." "But Sarah's ship never made it," Captain Yathara observed. "Her pod shows signs of crash damage. She's been unconscious for decades." The alarm suddenly grew louder. The structure's ancient sensors had detected the approaching Devourer fleet. "They were running out of time. Can we wake her?" Velthar asked. Captain Yathara studied her medical readings. "It's dangerous. She's been in stasis for 50 years. The revival process could kill her." "If we don't try, we'll all be dead anyway," Velthar said. "Those Devourers destroyed hundreds of civilizations. Our 3 ships won't be able to fight them." "But with human military knowledge," Dr. Cathara said, "maybe we could do something the Devourers don't expect." They began the revival process immediately. As Sarah Chen's pod opened and she took her first breath in 50 years, the Devourer fleet grew closer. The galaxy's last hope was waking up. Sarah Chen opened her eyes for the first time in 50 years. The world came into focus slowly, like emerging from deep water. Strange blue faces looked down at her. Aliens, but friendly ones, she hoped. "Easy," said one of them in accented English. "You've been asleep for a long time." Sarah tried to sit up, but her body felt like it was made of lead. "How long?" she whispered. 50 years, the alien replied. "I'm Captain Velthar of the Zephyrian Deep Space Fleet. This is Dr. Cathara and Captain Yathara." 50 years. Sarah's mind struggled with the number. She remembered her ship crashing into this refugee station. She remembered setting the emergency beacon and climbing into the life pod. "But 50 years? Earth?" she asked. The aliens looked at each other sadly. "I'm sorry," Captain Velthar said. "According to the records we found, Earth fell shortly after your ship left." Sarah closed her eyes. She had known it was likely, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. Everyone she had ever known was dead. Her planet was gone. She was alone. "But you're not the only survivor," Dr. Cathara said gently. "This station is full of refugees from dozens of species. All of them ran from the same enemy." "The Devourers," Sarah said. "Are they still coming?" "They're here," Captain Velthar replied. "Less than 60 hours away. We found your records, Sarah. We know what humans learned about fighting them." Sarah forced herself to sit up. Her body ached, but her mind was becoming clearer. "You read my files?" "We had to. The galaxy needs to know what your people discovered." Sarah looked around the chamber. Through the doorway, she could see the corridors of the refugee station. Bodies floating in zero gravity, failed life support systems, dying civilizations. "How many are still alive?" she asked. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, all in failing stasis pods just like you were." Sarah stood slowly, testing her strength. 50 years of sleep had weakened her body, but her mind was sharp. The tactical training kicked in immediately. "Show me the station's defensive capabilities," she said. "Sarah, you just woke up. You need medical attention. I need to see what we have to work with. If the Devourers are coming, we don't have time for rest." Captain Velthar led her to the command center. Sarah studied the holographic displays showing the station's layout. It was massive, built from the combined ships of dozens of civilizations. "This could work," she said after several minutes, "but not as a hiding place, as a fortress." "The station is falling apart," Dr. Cathara pointed out. "Life support is failing. Most systems are offline." "That doesn't matter," Sarah replied. "The Devourers expect their prey to run or hide. They don't expect them to fight back intelligently. Dr. Cathara, can you access the personnel records of everyone in the stasis pods?" "Yes, but most of them are dying." "Waking them would kill them. Not all of them." Sarah pulled up medical displays. Her human military training had included field medicine. "Look at these readings. These pods here and these ones. The occupants are stable enough to survive revival." She pointed to specific pods scattered throughout the station. "These are military personnel from different species. Officers, engineers, weapons specialists. People who know how to fight." Captain Yathara studied the medical data. "You're right. These individuals could survive the revival process. But there are only a few dozen of them. A few dozen experienced soldiers from different civilizations," Sarah said, "each with knowledge of their species' military technology." "That's enough to start with." "Start what?" Captain Velthar asked. Sarah smiled, and for the first time the aliens saw what had made humans dangerous. An army. Over the next 24 hours, Sarah and the Zephyrians began the dangerous process of reviving survivors. Each revival was risky. Many didn't survive the process after decades in failing stasis pods. But those who did survive brought incredible knowledge. Commander Thexel was a Korthani warrior, whose species had fought the Devourers for 3 years before falling. He brought expertise in energy weapons and shield technology. Engineer Zilveth came from the crystal cities of Morvana. Her people had created incredible defensive systems before the Devourers overwhelmed them. She knew how to turn entire structures into weapons. Pilot Rektar was from a species that lived in gas giants. His people's ships could move in ways that defied conventional physics. He understood three-dimensional combat better than anyone. Each survivor brought stories of how their civilization had fallen. Each had learned something about the Devourers before the end came. Every species fought the same way, Sarah explained to the growing group of survivors. You tried to match the Devourers' strength with strength, their technology with technology, their logic with logic. She activated a holographic display showing Devourer battle patterns. But the Devourers learn from every battle. They adapt. Every time you use a tactic, they become immune to it. Commander Thexel, a massive being with 4 arms and natural armor plating, spoke in his deep voice. Then how do we fight something that learns from our attacks? We don't fight them with logic, Sarah replied. We fight them with chaos. She brought up human military records. Battle footage from Earth's final war against the Devourers. My people discovered that the Devourers can only adapt to rational strategies. They expect their enemies to fight efficiently, to minimize losses, to protect their resources. The footage showed human tactics that made the aliens uncomfortable. Entire fleets sacrificing themselves for minor tactical advantages. Ships ramming into Devourer vessels rather than trying to escape. Attacks that seemed designed to fail. This is madness, Engineer Zilveth said. These humans are throwing their lives away for nothing. No, Sarah replied. They're not throwing their lives away. They're trading them for something more valuable. Confusion. She showed the results of the chaotic human attacks. The Devourer ships, normally perfectly coordinated, became disorganized. Their response patterns became erratic. The Devourers couldn't understand why humans would make inefficient choices. Their artificial intelligence broke down trying to predict irrational behavior. Pilot Rektar studied the footage with professional interest. Your people were using sacrifice as a weapon. We were using unpredictability as a weapon, Sarah corrected. The Devourers expect logical opponents. Give them chaos instead, and they can't adapt. Over the next day, Sarah worked with the survivors to develop a new kind of battle plan. It went against everything they had been taught about warfare. Instead of protecting their resources, they would waste them deliberately. Instead of coordinated attacks, they would attack randomly. Instead of trying to win efficiently, they would try to confuse the enemy. This feels wrong, Commander Thexel admitted. My people believed in honorable combat. This is something else. Your people are dead, Sarah said bluntly. Honor didn't save them. The Devourers destroyed your civilization while you fought honorably. The words were harsh but true. Every species represented in their small group had been wiped out while fighting traditionally. We're not just fighting for our lives, Sarah continued. We're fighting for the future of intelligence in this galaxy. Sometimes winning means doing things that feel wrong. Engineer Zilveth had been working on the station's systems. I can turn the entire structure into a weapon, she reported. But it will require sacrificing whole sections. We'll lose most of the life support systems. Do it, Sarah said. The Devourers expect us to try to preserve this place. Instead, we'll use it as ammunition. As they worked, more survivors were revived. Not all of them were soldiers. Some were scientists, engineers, doctors. Each brought knowledge from their dead civilizations. Dr. Yothal was a biochemist whose people had discovered new ways to disrupt mechanical systems. Historian Pelvan carried the complete tactical records of 7 fallen civilizations. Philosopher Wendar understood Devourer psychology better than anyone. Together, they represented the last fragments of dozens of extinct species. Their worlds were gone, their people dead. But their knowledge lived on. The irony is perfect, Sarah said to Captain Velthar as they watched the growing group of survivors work. The Devourers destroyed our civilizations to learn from us. Now we're going to use that knowledge against them. Do you really think this will work? Velthar asked. Sarah looked out at the refugee station, now being transformed into a fortress. Survivors from across the galaxy worked together, combining their technologies in ways that had never been tried before. I don't know, she admitted, but I know that running doesn't work. Hiding doesn't work. Fighting conventionally doesn't work. This is the only option we haven't tried. The Devourer fleet was less than 12 hours away. Soon they would face the enemy that had destroyed hundreds of civilizations. But for the first time in thousands of years, that enemy would face something new. They would face an army trained by humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the smallest chance of victory. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a disease made manifest. 12 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, their black surfaces absorbing light and hope equally. They moved with perfect coordination, as they had for thousands of years. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the refugee station, now transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. A fortress built from the wreckage of dead civilizations, armed with weapons that shouldn't work together, crewed by the last survivors of 100 worlds. They're beautiful, she said quietly, watching the enemy fleet approach. Perfect predators. Commander Thexel looked at her like she was insane. Beautiful? They destroyed my homeworld. That's why they're beautiful, Sarah replied. Perfect killing machines. No wasted motion. No emotion. No chaos, she smiled. Which is exactly why we're going to beat them. The Devourer ships began their standard approach pattern. They would surround the station, analyze its defenses, then systematically tear it apart while learning from any resistance. All stations report ready, Engineer Zilveth announced. The station is now fully weaponized. Life support in outer sections has been shut down as planned. Dr. Kethera monitored the Devourer communications. They're scanning us, trying to understand our defensive pattern. Let them scan, Sarah said. They won't understand what they're seeing. The station looked like a typical refugee gathering. Desperate survivors clinging to failing technology. The Devourers had seen this scenario thousands of times before. Sarah, Captain Velthar said from his position on the Cosmic Dawn, are you sure about this plan? No, Sarah admitted. But that's the point. I'm not sure, you're not sure, nobody's sure. Which means the Devourers can't predict what we'll do. The first Devourer ship moved into attack position. Its massive bulk cast a shadow over the station. Now, Sarah said quietly. Engineer Zilveth activated the first surprise. Instead of powering up defensive shields, she overloaded the station's power grid. The entire structure began to glow like a star. The Devourers paused. This wasn't the behavior they expected from prey. They're confused, Dr. Kethara reported. Their battle computers are trying to analyze why we would overload our power systems. While they're thinking about it, Sarah said, hit them with everything we have. What followed wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. It was chaos. The station didn't try to defend itself. Instead, it launched every piece of debris, every scrap of metal, every working component directly at the nearest Devourer ship. Not as weapons, but as distractions. Commander Thexel led the first wave of fighter craft, but instead of attacking in formation, each pilot flew completely independently. Some attacked directly, others ran away, still others seemed to fly in random circles. The Devourers had never faced such disorder. Their perfectly coordinated response systems began to malfunction as they tried to predict unpredictable behavior. It's working, Pilot Rektar reported from his modified fighter. They're not adapting. They don't know what to adapt to. Sarah watched the battle display with professional satisfaction. The Devourers were still more powerful, but they were no longer efficient. Their perfect coordination was breaking down. Phase 2, she announced. Sacrifice the outer ring. This was the hardest part. Engineer Zilveth detonated the explosive charges she had planted throughout the station's outer sections. Entire levels disappeared in brilliant explosions, taking with them irreplaceable technology from dozens of dead civilizations. The explosions weren't meant to damage the Devourers. They were meant to create more chaos. The debris field became a storm of metal and energy that made precise targeting impossible. You're destroying your own fortress, one of the Devourer ships broadcast in perfect galactic standard. It was the first time in recorded history that they had tried to communicate during battle. Sarah activated the general comm channel. "That's the plan," she replied. She could almost feel the confusion rippling through the Devourer fleet. They were machines built to learn and adapt. But how do you adapt to an enemy that destroys its own resources? Phase 3, Sarah announced. Time to get personal. Captain Yathara launched the medical ships, not as evacuation vessels but as rams. The Gentle Current and 2 other medical ships accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer vessel. "Medical ships don't carry weapons," the Devourer broadcast again. "This action serves no tactical purpose." "You're right," Captain Yathara replied as her ship smashed into the Devourer's hull. "It serves an emotional purpose." The impact barely scratched the massive enemy ship, but it accomplished something more important. It proved that the defenders were willing to die for reasons the Devourers couldn't understand. The enemy fleet's coordination broke down further. Some ships began attacking randomly. Others hesitated, trying to analyze behavior that made no logical sense. Sarah pressed the advantage. "All fighters execute Plan Chaos." What followed looked like military insanity. Ships attacked their own allies by accident. Weapons fired in random directions. Pilots ejected from perfectly functional fighters for no apparent reason. But every seemingly random action served a purpose. Every mistake was calculated to increase confusion. The Devourers, meanwhile, were trapped in logic loops. Their computers couldn't process an enemy that seemed to be fighting itself. "Now for the real attack," Sarah said. While the Devourers were distracted by the chaos, the real plan unfolded. Hidden among the random debris were the station's most powerful weapons, controlled by the best tactical minds from a dozen civilizations. They struck at the exact moment when the Devourer fleet was most confused. Precise attacks on critical systems, delivered by weapons the enemy had dismissed as random junk. One by one, the Devourer ships began to malfunction. Their perfect coordination became a liability, as confused signals spread through their network. "Impossible," came the broadcast from the enemy fleet commander. "You are destroying yourselves to achieve minor tactical advantages. This behavior is not sustainable." "You're right," Sarah replied. "But we don't need to sustain it. We just need to sustain it longer than you can stay confused." The battle raged for 6 hours. The refugee station was almost completely destroyed. Most of the fighters were lost. Thousands of irreplaceable artifacts from dead civilizations were reduced to space dust. But when it was over, something unprecedented had happened. A Devourer fleet had been defeated. 3 months later, the surviving Zephyrian ships returned to Nexus Station. The Galactic Council had expected a few traumatized refugees, if anyone returned at all. Instead, they found something that stunned the galaxy. The ships that emerged from hyperspace carried representatives from dozens of species that were supposed to be extinct, survivors who had been awakened from their dying sleep and forged into something new. They didn't come as refugees. They came as warriors. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled Galactic Council, no longer the desperate human who had sent a distress signal 50 years ago. She was now the acknowledged leader of the Remnant Fleet, an alliance of species that had learned to fight the impossible enemy. "The Devourers are not invincible," she announced to the shocked council members. "They can be beaten, but not by fighting them the way you've always fought your wars." Admiral Yeldana spoke for the stunned Zephyrians. "How many Devourer fleets did you destroy?" "1," Sarah replied. "But that's enough to prove it can be done. The Devourer's greatest weapon isn't their technology. It's fear, the belief that they can't be defeated." The Vorthak representative, its crystal form ringing with agitation, spoke for all of them. "You sacrificed an entire station and thousands of lives for one victory." "We sacrificed one station to save the galaxy," Sarah corrected. "And those lives weren't lost. They were invested." She activated a holographic display showing the Remnant Fleet. Ships from dozens of civilizations, all retrofitted with human tactical doctrine. Weapons that fired randomly to confuse enemy targeting systems. Fighters that flew in chaotic patterns. Defensive systems designed to fail spectacularly. "The Devourers have spent millions of years learning to defeat logical enemies," Sarah explained. "Every civilization they encountered fought to minimize losses, protect resources, achieve victory efficiently. And that's wrong?" the Nexari Queen asked. "It's predictable," Sarah replied. "The Devourers learned to counter every logical strategy. but they never learned to counter chaos. Dr. Kithara, now serving as Sarah's chief scientist, stepped forward. We've developed new tactical doctrine based on human military philosophy. Controlled chaos, calculated waste, strategic sacrifice. You're talking about deliberately throwing lives away, the deep collar representative objected. We're talking about trading lives for victory, Sarah said firmly. Every species the Devourers destroyed tried to preserve themselves. They all lost everything anyway. She paused, looking at each council member in turn. Humanity understood something the rest of the galaxy never learned. Sometimes, to save what you love, you have to be willing to lose everything you have. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Admiral Yeldana spoke. What do you want from us? Sarah's answer changed the galaxy forever. We want volunteers. People willing to learn a new way of fighting. Because the Devourers are still out there, and one victory isn't enough to stop them. And if we refuse,